In this video, we will show you how to build a simple web application for a bookstore. To build our application, we will be using Apache Tomcat as our servlet container and PostgreSQL for our database. To download Apache Tomcat, go to tomcat.apache.org where you can download different versions of Tomcat. For this project, we will be using version 8.5. Similarly, go to www.postgresql.org and download the distribution for your operating system. Inside PostgreSQL, we will create a database called Bookstore where we will store our data. You can go to the YouTube link below for tutorial on how to set up the PostgreSQL. To create a new table, simply right-click on the tables and choose Create. Similarly, we can add, delete, or alter different aspects of our table by right-clicking on the table name and choose the action from the drop-down. We can also use the script to do it manually. Before we get to our web application, let's talk about the design pattern. The design pattern that we chose is called Model View Controller. In this design, we separate our application into Data Storage Layer, which consists of our database, Data Access Layer, which contains our Java beans, Business Logic Layers, which contains our servlet, and lastly, our Presentation Layer, which is simply all the JSP pages. On the registration page, user is able to fill their details in the form as shown. Once they click Submit, a page will be displayed informing user that a confirmation email has been sent. So how does this work in the back? On the JSP page, the details which users entered are stored as parameters, which will then be passed on to the control servlet once the Submit button is clicked. Upon receiving the request, the control servlet firstly reads a special parameter to know where the request is coming from. Once it has identified the source, it will then redirect the request to the registration servlet. The registration servlet will read all the parameters as well as generating a UUID. This unique ID is used to identify the user by attaching it to the URL sent in the confirmation email. When the user logs in, the landing page will show randomly selected items as well as a search bar. User can search by publication, type, author, year, and venue. By navigating to the profile page, user is able to change their information simply by typing a new value, then clicking on the Update button. Any value can be changed except for the username. We also have an option for advanced search where user can search by multiple fields. Adding an item to the cart is as simple as ticking the box and clicking on the Add button. User can also add item to their wishlist by clicking on the item and clicking on Add to Wishlist button. From the same page, user can also remove item from both cart and wishlist. Now, let's take a look at the code. On the JSP file, we will again have a hidden field to help the control servlet to recognize the source of the request. As you can see on the right, the control servlet will redirect the request to another servlet, which specifically handles the search request. The search servlet calls on a method from the data bin. On the right is the search method which calls on another function to retrieve the data from our database. On the left, you can see how we are able to connect to the database, create query, and retrieve the result. Once the search result is obtained, it is passed on to the result.jsp page as Java beans. On the JSP page, we are able to import the bean and therefore access the search result sent by the servlet. By using JavaScript, we are able to look through the result and dynamically create a table to display each entry. Let's go back to our shopping cart. When user clicks on Purchase, an email will be sent to the seller. While the request is being processed, user interaction with the page is temporarily blocked. User can also put an item up for sale. Simply go to Manage My Item and Add Item. On this page, user will fill in the item detail such as title, author, price, and quantity, as well as add an image. As with the other pages, these values are passed on to the servlet, which will then call on the databin method to add an entry to the database. User can also change the item status by clicking on the Change Status button. This will take the item off the sale list or put them back on by changing the status value to true or false. Some users will have special access as admin. An admin has special privileges to manage both user and item. From the admin page, we can view and change the user detail. Admin can either promote a user or demote an admin, as well as deactivating a user, hence blocking the user from the website. Furthermore, admin can also take sale item off the list by changing its status. There is also a special activity report only accessible to admin. In this report, we can see a user's purchase history and items which they have added and removed from the cart. There is also a button to switch back and forth between admin and user page. The JSP page will check the user bin status and only display the button if the user has an admin level access. Lastly, we have a visualization which shows the relationship between entities. These entities include publication, author, and publisher. We are using Viz to create the visualization. To download Viz, click on the link and go to their download page. There are a few showcases available on the website which display different types of graphs that can be created with Viz. The entity information, such as their type and value, is saved in the entity store table, while their relationship is stored in the graph table. The graph.jsp page will request data from the servlet, which will extract the entity details and their relationship from the database. These will then be passed on as Java objects, namely nodes and edges. In the visualization, we can also search for a particular entity and the graph will show all the entities directly linked to it. For example, we can search by title. As we can see, the Life of Servlet is a publication which has two authors, Daniel and some guy, and it is published by Stored A. This graph is updated every time a new item is added by the user. Thank you for watching. All of the links mentioned in the video are listed in the description box below.